Captain's Log. Today's entry, my review of Virgin's so-called Coffin Class. The worst first class experience I've ever had. Well, they call it upper class, but it was anything but upper class. I've been a big fan of Virgin for many years. I love their cruises. My wife and I have sailed on 2 Virgin Voyages cruises, staying in their Mega Rockstar suites, and both cruises were fantastic. Virgin is hands down my favorite cruise line, and that's why it pains me to say that I will never fly Virgin Atlantic again until they completely retire or reconfigure their Boeing 787 fleet. The first flight I took with them was fine on the A330. Their lounge at Heathrow was superb, but the return flight on the 787 was one of the worst flight experiences of my life. And I've been on a lot of planes. Now, I'll begin by saying one thing very clear. Every Virgin Atlantic employee that I encountered was outstanding. From the flight attendants to the gate staff, the lounge servers, the bartenders, even the security personnel. Everyone was friendly, professional, went above and beyond. They were great. If customer service alone determined my loyalty, I would be with Virgin forever. Our first leg was Miami to Heathrow on an Airbus A330. That flight was actually enjoyable. There's plenty of space in the upright seated position, good-sized seat with room to stretch out, a large TV screen. There was a big side table next to me to put drinks and food on, and another one that pops out in front of you for your meal. There's a privacy door between seats, so unless someone stands up in the aisle, you couldn't see other passengers. Overall, I felt like I had privacy and comfort. This was my little cubby here, and you can see there's my wife up there watching whatever is on the screen right there. Looks like we're both watching the pre-flight video, I think. Now, the one drawback with the A330 is the sleeping setup. When the seat lays flat, your feet slide into the cubby under the seat in front of you. And for someone like me, I'm a side sleeper, I found it kind of cramped. I didn't have enough space to stack my feet naturally, so as a result, I would rate the sleeping arrangement a 4 out of 10. Luckily, I can sleep sitting up from years of flying in regular first class, so I wasn't too bothered, but if you expect real rest, no. Now, the food on this flight was excellent. We got 2 very good meals. The flight attendants were attentive. We were offered pajamas, blankets, pillows. And if this had been my only Virgin Atlantic experience, I would fly them again without hesitation. And then we got to London and we had a little vacation time. We saw some of the sights in London like Big Ben and Parliament and Westminster. Got to meet Alex, who's been helping me on the website for years and years. And went up to Edinburgh, Scotland and saw the castle up there. And it was a good time. And you can read all about that in the Captain's Log on my website. Now, heading home, Virgin actually has their own upper class wing of the airport. So you go right to there. You don't have to go to the main terminals, which is nice. They've got dedicated check-in and security, and it was incredible. Probably the fastest check-in I've ever had for a flight. No lines, no stress, just a quick passport check and done. And security was just as fast. The Virgin Atlantic Clubhouse Lounge was equally impressive. It wasn't jam-packed like, for example, a Delta Sky Club, where you struggle to find a seat. There were plenty of places to relax, food you ordered with a QR code from a full menu including burgers, meats, fruits, you name it. Drinks were excellent, staff was attentive and friendly. There were nap areas, a yoga space, showers, one of the best lounges I've been in, swings. And so up until this point, Virgin Atlantic looked like my new favorite airline. Yay! Then came the return flight home, London to Miami, on the Boeing 787. This was, without exaggeration, one of the worst premium flight experiences I've ever had. Now, this is what their so-called coffin seats look like online. There's lots of good pictures that don't make them look that bad, right? In fact, this is the picture that's actually on Virgin Atlantic's website. That dude looks like he's got plenty of space there, right? What's with the little curve there in the seat? I don't know. But he looks okay, right? Well, no, not so much. You can make anything look good with a picture, right? I guess you can make anything look bad with a picture too. But in my experience, these seats were tiny. Now, I'm a big guy. I'm 6 feet tall and about 300 pounds. But even if I were thin, I still have broad shoulders. These seats are so narrow, there's no elbow room. I had to sit like that with my arms closed most of the time to be comfortable. You literally feel squeezed in like you're in a coffin. I couldn't sit cross-legged as I like to do, or move around at all. It's just simply a miserable seat. There's zero privacy. Now, fortunately, I had no one on my left, but I was sitting next to my wife. I can look directly over her shoulder and see her phone. I didn't have to stand up to get that picture either. I just held my phone up about a little bit over my head height. Okay? And the picture on the right there, I'm looking right at her from my seated position. I mean, we could clearly turn and talk to each other, which is nice if you're traveling with a group, but if there's a stranger there, that's just awkward. I'm like looking right at the side of her face. It's just weird. The divider between the seats is so low, it feels pointless. You can see everybody on the whole flight in the cabin there. And this is the actual view from my seat looking forward. You can see the tops of other passengers' heads and all of their feet. Now, Virgin hands out socks, which makes sense because you can literally smell everyone's feet. It's disgusting. And this configuration makes you feel like you're in some weird circle of strangers. It's like I expected them to hand out bongo drums and everyone to start singing Kumbaya or something. It's just gross. Whoever thought this was a good idea, if they haven't been fired already, they should definitely be fired. And because all of the dividers are low, the sunlight from multiple windows floods the whole cabin. Virgin uses dimmable windows, like LED windows, instead of real shades, but they don't block enough light. And when the sun hits you, you're blinded. Plus, you're sitting in an awkward position, so for takeoff and landing, you're getting thrusted sideways 45 degrees, like against your arm. It's weird. In a normal plane, you're pushed back into your seat. This is just... It feels unnatural, and frankly, it's unsafe. Plus, and I'm not going to put a picture. I took a picture of it, but I'm not going to put the picture on here. The food on this flight was awful. I got the ribs, which is the same thing I got for dinner on the first flight to London, and they were fantastic. So I ordered them again, and they were gross. The first bite, I had to spit it out. It was like I was chewing shoe leather. It was gross. Absolutely the worst meal I've had in business class. Now, this brings me to the bar. My seat was right near the onboard bar, and you might think that sounds cool, but it's not. Now, this is the concept photo for it. Looks really cool, right? Although that can't be safe. What happens if you hit some turbulence, right? You've seen it on the news. Airplanes all the time hit unexpected turbulence. These people would be right up into the ceiling. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. You should always have your seatbelt on when you're flying. The only time I take mine off is, to risk it for a few minutes to go to the bathroom. Now, this is an actual picture of what the bar really looks like. And yeah, that's pretty true to it. And that seems like a great idea, except my seat is this one right here. This is where I was sitting, and this is where my wife was sitting, right? So that's what my view looked like most of the flight. Because on this side of the bar, you got the flight attendants making drinks. And the people sitting at the bar over here are looking right at me, talking, drinking, and getting drunk and drinking, while I was trying to relax. So they're looking at me, I'm looking right at them. It's just, again, like the whole flight, it's just weird. And of course, the flight attendants are constantly there, popping champagne, mixing drinks, throwing out garbage. Even if I wanted to sleep, there was zero chance with all that racket. Now, while I was researching and grabbing some photos online to put this video together, I found this article that says that Virgin is planning on getting rid of the iconic bar after 41 years between 2028 and 2030. That doesn't help me at all, but this onboard bar is just, it's a bad idea. It's awful. Now, this brings us to the sleep setup for the coffin seats. Now, our flight was during the day, so we weren't really that desperate for sleep. We left London around 3 p.m.-ish, and we got into Miami about 9 p.m.-ish with the time difference. It was about a 10-hour flight. So we were okay. We didn't really need to lay flat and sleep. But in order to do it, you got to get the flight attendant to come and recline the seat and make it up as a bed, and we watched other people do it. It was just a pain in the butt. Your seat as it is barely reclines in seat mode. It goes back maybe an inch or two. I've had regular first class seats that recline better than those. And just looking at other people, the bed's really tight. The space is small. Everything about it is just, again, just weird. And again, if I did decide to lay down, everybody over at the bar would be looking right at me. So, just weird. And some other minor miscellaneous things. Just the monitor arm that pops out is kind of awkward. The screen's really small. The entertainment that they had to select from was nowhere near as good as like what Delta has available. There's basically no storage. Like the A330 had a nice storage. You could hang your bag up. This thing was, no. I had to keep my little bag like under my arm. This giant tray table here is all or nothing. You can't have like a little, there's no like side spot to put your drink if you want. It's just all on that or nothing. The mood lighting is a little annoying. I know Virgin really likes its purple mood lighting, but no. And I do have to say, for what these seats cost, I feel like Virgin's nickel and diming you by making you spend an extra $40 for Wi-Fi. It's like these seats are worth, they cost thousands of dollars. And it's like, really, you got to squeeze me for Wi-Fi too? That should be included. That's just how I feel. Sorry. So when I add it all up, the return flight ruined the Virgin Atlantic experience for me. The A330 flight was great. The check-in, their wing, the lounge, all of that was amazing. But the Boeing 787 upper class was so bad it cancels out all of those positives. So until Virgin retires every single one of those 787s or completely guts and refits them with the modern configuration, I will definitely not be flying them again. I wouldn't risk paying upper class prices and then have it, because you could check what type of plane you're flying. And I read some of the reviews about the Coffin Class, but I know that sometimes they'll make reviews that are worse than things really are. I've read some bad reviews of some things before and some restaurants and stuff. And then you go there and it's like, it wasn't that bad. Some people just complain. No, when I complain, it's bad. It takes a lot for me to put a lot of effort into making a video like this. So I wouldn't be complaining if I wasn't really ticked off. I feel like this flight experience was nowhere near the value that they charged for it. But I wouldn't book again with Virgin because I wouldn't want to book on like an A350 or a 330 and then last minute they switch your flight. That's happened to me before too. And they put you on an older plane. I've had other airlines do that to me lots of times. And like my wife and I will book seats next to each other and then, oh, by the way, we moved your seats. You're up in the front, you're in the back. That stuff happens all the time. Virgin cruises are excellent. Their staff is excellent. But the 787 upper class is definitely one of the worst business class products I've ever flown, and it is absolutely not worth the price. And speaking of price, I will say that I am by no means a rich person, but because I'm a bigger guy, when I do fly, I prefer flying first class or business class or upper class or whatever class they're calling it. I don't want to be sitting in, regular economy and be that big guy that spills over into your seat. I'm not comfortable. You're not comfortable. And if you get two people sitting next to each other like my size, it's an awful flight. I don't care how short the flight is. I've sat next to people my size before. Not only are you fighting for the armrest, but it's like your legs are rubbing. It's awkward. So I will take fewer trips overall so that when I do fly, I can get first class tickets. And I've flown in many different first class flights, Delta, American, Lufthansa. Lufthansa was much better. This is by far the worst. I would rather fly in a simple Delta first class seat than this coffin nonsense. So thanks for listening to me rant. And thanks for watching this entry in my captain's log. If you want to see more of my personal stories, rants, reviews, check out my blog. There's the link, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. And hey, if you're into computers and want to learn Microsoft Access, Word, Excel, and lots of other stuff, that's what I do over at Computer Learning Zone. So live long and prosper, my friends. I will see you in the next Captain's Log.